What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to an episode of At Home with Mark. If I can speak today, it's been a long work day. Season 11, episode 9. So today we're kind of going in a different direction. Now we've got Mr. Tom Woodrum on the show with us. And thank you to Justin Stabler for connecting us. Justin, thank you so much for once again bringing cool people onto the show. But Tom, I want to talk to you about your whole career from like the start of like learning guitar, getting into gear, all that stuff moving forward through to 311. But I also wanted to ask you, because I asked this question to everybody, what is your like earliest, if you go in the deep like trenches of your brain, like what's like the earliest musical memory?
I would say the earliest music memory I have would be riding in the car with my dad and listening to like John Mellencamp was huge in my dad's car.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I might get emotional talking about my dad.
That's okay. I just lost my dad 2 years ago, so I'm right there.
Yeah, so a lot of music in his car. Pawnee Rate was another one.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah, a lot in that. And then things like, Stevie Ray Vaughan, I got introduced with my dad, but definitely John Mellencamp. A lot of those songs were endless, and for like road trips, going up to the mountains, we would grow up going camping, and
where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Jose, California.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
Bay
Cool.
Area.
Where's Mellencamp from?
I probably knew that, but at this moment I can't remember. I do have the
East
power.
Coast? East Coast guy?
He has that vibe.
Yeah.
Let's see. John Mellencamp. Luckily we have the internet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
At our hand.
So did your dad play any music? Did he play instruments?
He didn't. There's pictures that I have of my dad as like a young kid with a guitar and a drum kit. So my grandparents got him instruments, and it just didn't stick for whatever reason. My dad was a very creative person as far as being able to do things with his hands, and he's very, very tactile in that sense. And he was always a Mr. Fix-It, Mr. Go-To, Mr. Do everything himself, and if anybody had a problem, he was the guy that they would go to. So it's kind of surprising that he didn't get into music, but he was a carpenter, construction guy, very business savvy, was always his own boss. But as far as music, that is kind of how I got into listening to music. Like I said, I would go through my parents' record collection that they had in the house, and it was like, Chuck Mangione, and then Jimi Hendrix greatest hits, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Michael Jackson, and then other things like Crosby, Stills, Nash.
Dang, dude, you grew up around a lot of great music, man.
Neil Young, James Taylor, Beatles stuff. I mean, just really, really good stuff. And then my dad started buying, stuff that he liked, CDs when CDs became a thing, because I am of that age. And, I started hearing that stuff that he liked. But there was a guitar in the house. There was an acoustic guitar that my grandparents gave my dad. Why? Don't know. And it was just in the house. It was just kind of in the corner. And as a kid, I would go and I'd grab it. And I'd strum it like every person that doesn't know how to play guitar does. And it was just something about it was what was hooking me and pulling me to it. So eventually, my dad bought a Johnny Lang CD when he first came out. His first CD, Lie to Me. And that, coupled with all the other guitar, Led Zeppelin. My dad's a big Led Zeppelin fan. My mom hates Led Zeppelin, so it's very funny in that sense. So hearing all those things, and it was always the guitar that seemed to catch me in all of the things. I wish I could sing better, but guitar was always what I really, really kind of felt. This indescribable draw and pull. So when I really started getting kind of interested in it and seeing it and watching, we didn't have YouTube and all that stuff, but like getting to have these VHSs of like Jimi Hendrix, you know, they weren't even documentaries. It was like they were just weird compilations of live footage, and then stuff about, you know, him backstage and people interviewing, talking about him. The more and more I saw that stuff, and listening to the CDs and the music and stuff with my dad, and even my, you know, my mom as well. You know, she was always great letting me throw John Fogerty CDs and stuff in the car while we were driving, or Kiss, or like, you know, once I got into like Chili Peppers and stuff, like I could kind of control the CD player. And then of course 90s, like Hootie and the Blowfish, and it was a lot of country music too growing up. So really good players like Vince Gill and Dwight Yoakam and those guys, you know, Alan Jackson. But for me, it was always, those are great songs, but there's a guitar, there's an acoustic guitar, there's an electric guitar, there's chicken picking, there's all those things. And it was just, no matter what I was hearing, I'm like, there's guitar in this. So I had that guitar that was just kind of hanging out in the house, and it was just a funky Hohner acoustic, you know, dreadnought guitar, nothing special. And then I really started to push. I was like, I want to get an electric guitar. And part of that too was stemmed from my cousin, who was a few years older, but he started getting into guitar and playing, and he's an amazing player, especially from right away. I was always kind of like, dude, my cousin's like a rock star. This is insane. So, you know, we'd do trips up to our cabin, like I was talking about, up in the mountains. It's like family trips, and he'd bring his guitar, and he'd be like playing stuff, like playing Rage Against the Machine. And I'd be like, can I ask him to like show me stuff? And I'd think, oh, that's exactly what you just showed me. And he's like, that's totally wrong. Do it again. He'd show me even slower, and I'd do it. It's kind of like that Friends episode where Phoebe's trying to teach Joey how to speak French. You know,
Right.
He'd play it right, and I'd go, whap, whap, heap, heap. I'm like, that's exactly what you just, you know. So it just all kind of stemmed from, you know, the people closest to me kind of miraculously having all of the right musical influences and things that were perfectly triggering all of my interests and all of the things that I didn't even know I had at that time. So then, you know, I was probably just between, it was like 5th and 6th grade. I was 11 years old, and I got my dad to take me to our local guitar store in San Jose, Guitar Showcase, which was one of the greatest stores ever. I ended up working there not that long ago, just before COVID. So shout out to Guitar Showcase. If you're ever in San Jose, go there. Even though it's a smaller setup, it's a very it's a staple of music in the Bay Area, I think. But went in there and got one of those Squier Strat packs, you know, Squier Strat, a little tiny Squier amp, some random picks, and then I went home, and it was just nonstop from there. You know, just it snowballed really, really fast for me, and everything I did was, how can I keep doing this? How can I make this more of me? And yeah, so I definitely credit it to my upbringing and my family as to what got me into music, even though, you know, majority of them weren't musicians. You know, I had my cousin, which we ended up then being in a band together for a long time. So that was like my first experience in being like on an actual kind of touring situation. But we can get into that later if you have any more questions about that. But
were you guys close in age?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just by, you know, maybe like 4 or 5 years.
Let me ask you this, Tom. Did you, like, when you started working heavy on learning the instrument, and you like, because I get the impression, like, I'm having like a little bit of a, you know, flashback to me as a young kid, because I was the same way. I was just like voracious and really wanted to learn, and like just like constantly. I think there wasn't a moment when I didn't have it in my hands, to the point where my dad was like, "Dude, did you do your homework?" Like, kind of thing. And did you get to a place where you were like worked your ass off, and then the next time you went back to the cabin with your cousin, you had learned so much, he was like, "Whoa, dude."
Yeah, I think there were a few moments of that, you know, and that's kind of what then stemmed to the discussion to actually be good enough, you know, to be considered to come hang out with his friends and play, you know. And I sat in, did, you know, I was like so obsessive and it was a 3-piece at that point, and I can't remember how it like came up, but it was like, can I come and do a song with you guys? And I, and like a lot of young bands, they had originals, but they're also doing a lot of covers, like, God, what was it? I don't know if they were doing Inagata Davida or something like that, some other, songs. And I was like, well, can I come and do like Purple Haze or, Voodoo Child, or it was one of, I think it was Purple Haze. And it was at a church community center thing where all the local bands would have their rock shows. I'm sure a lot of cities around the country had the same thing for the up and coming local bands. So yeah, it definitely was that exact kind of thing where I guess I showed him well enough that, I could play, and he, was gracious enough to be like, yeah, come in. So we went to his house one time and we jammed and recorded, and somewhere there's a cassette tape of like this first jam with me, my cousin, and the bass player singer. He sung and played bass at the same time. He was on drums, and it was just the three of us just dicking around and made up some, extensive long jam that really was just fun. And I was really proud of that forever. I would carry that tape around and play it. I'd take it to school and show my music teacher, like, oh, I just did this with my cousin.
That's killer.
But then once that was done, the band got bigger as far as adding another player. And then they started doing more and they started recording. But I was, at that point, the age gap was just enough to where it was like I was kind of too young to be in the band, or they didn't want me in the band. And then when that guitar player and the band parted, they hit me up. They're like, do you want to join? Because the band I was in at that same time, and we would cross over and do shows, like that had ended. So I was kind of, perfect timing to figure out another step to make as a, an ignorant kid that doesn't know what to do in order to make a dream progress forward. And they were gracious enough to want me and ask me. And then I did that for many, many years. And I feel like if it hadn't fizzled or, ended the way it did, we'd probably still be doing it. At least I believe so. But
what was the name of that band?
When we were together, it was called Delta Activity. When it started, they called themselves Ill-Fated. Okay. Which is an actual phrase, which just means, a poor fate. But at that time of like the late 90s, early 2000s, Ill-Fated, it sounded kind of like Beastie Boys-ish, like, oh, that's ill. Right. So,
there's nothing wrong with that. The Beastie Boys.
No, not at all. So with the full, with the 4-piece lineup that they had, and they recorded a disc, they called the CD Delta Activity, but then they're like, we should probably change the names. They're like, oh, perfect, we'll just call the band Delta Activity, and the CD is Ill-Fated, and then that's how it went on from there.
It's clever.
Then, yeah. So, we toured with really, really close friends of mine. Dredge is another Bay Area band, and then Circa Survive, when they first started on their first album, they were like main support for Dredge, and we were the opener. So that was my first experience like touring with something of a level where you're like, oh, like this is real, and there's people selling tickets, and there's merch, there's t-shirts, that I still see people wearing, and people still, they re-released that vinyl of both Dredges and Circa Survive. So it was like really cool to be a part of that.
How old were you at that time, Tom?
I was like 18, 19. Damn. I started really young. Because they were all, at that point turning like 21 and stuff. So when I first was in the band, like 15, 16. So it was really kind of, I grew up, my dad taking me to blues clubs in San Jose when I was, like 12, 13 to sit in and play and jam, but I had to sit outside and wait all night, and I know I've met a lot of guitar players over the years that had to do the same thing. But it was, again, like you said, that kind of like obsessive hunger to where I was doing anything I could. And then I did that for years. Like I remember it was even like I started my dad having to drive me, and then it was suddenly now, I've been doing it so many years. Now I'm driving us because I just got my license, so I did it up until the point I was like 16, 17. Even then that crossed over into doing it with, joining local bands and playing stuff that I wasn't really not saying that I wasn't interested in, but that it wasn't my regular kind of style. Like I met guys that were more into that era, like new metal, kind of heavier stuff. And then that kind of introduced me into, again, a whole bunch of artists that I probably wouldn't have, or I would have found on my own. But, just when I started really getting to appreciating things like, the guys like Deftones, just kind of being kind of inundated with all of this, all of this different music, especially at that time of the late 90s, early 2000s. And it was so exciting because it seemed like every time I had a conversation or hung out with someone in a band or in a circle of friends, someone would mention something. I'd be like, who's that? I don't know how long it would have taken me to figure out who Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum is, but thank God for my friend Ben, who was the singer bass player in Delta, and my cousin's like best friend growing up. I was like, okay, now that took me down a weird alleyway that turned into a whole thoroughfare of crazy, kind of prog instrumental, stuff that was like, I'm sure it's the same thing as someone that's like reading Hemingway for the first time and they're just like, their brain just kind of goes wild. And so yeah, it was just a really exciting, kind of being exposed by people that were just a little bit older, and it seemed to like, in my mind, in my view, watching like all of the kind of established local guys, to me it was the same thing of like watching like any kind of high profile band show up, to do shows, and they were like, who are you listening to? Well, or see a shirt like what's Nin, like, oh, 9 Inch Nails, I gotta look that up,
right.
All of these things,
Dude, it's funny because that the Bay Area, I have like, I've had several guests on that grew up in that area. I have one person in particular. Do you know who Will Blades is? He's a B3 player.
Okay. Yeah.
But he's played with a ton of people. But he told me kind of a very similar story about being like young enough that he couldn't go into the club, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like they would let him play because he could play.
Right.
But cutting your teeth that way and playing with older musicians, like, do you feel that was a very drastic growth period in your like musical life?
I would say, yeah, but it was, just on the cusp of being manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would influence how I played, because like I'd be so deep, drenched in, blues music and that kind of stuff. And then next thing you know, like Incubus puts out a new album that I'm like, and now that's kind of, but it's not pushing it out of the way. It's just now those things are now just hooked in. So it's like I'll be listening to an Incubus CD on the way to go to play blues songs at a blues, and it's like I would kind of integrate those things in a little bit or see how I could. So I was experimenting on how to not be just one type, of, one style of player. Because I never really liked that, even with like, my band or any of the music I've ever done, people are always like, oh, so like, what kind of music is it? And I'd always say, it's music. You listen to it and you tell me what you hear, because you could listen to it and be like, oh, that's very like Mars Volta. And I listen to someone else listen to it and like, oh, that sounds kind of like, it's more Pink Floyd to me, even though those two are very close, but it's like, or it's, Iron and Wine influenced, on some songs. And,
oh, wow.
Medeski, Martin and Wood was huge that we would listen to a lot. And they toured with 311, and, so it's all these kind of weird, and I know my cousin and all them, like they listened to 311 because it was all, I remember when that video came out, and it was right at that time when I was getting exposed to music with, with my older counterparts. And so it was, kind of weird now to look back at that time and think, oh, little me sitting there seeing that video and Nick's blonde head floating. It's always been like forever ingrained in that video, just ingrained in my head. Like never would I thought that I'd now just be texting him before I get on with you to be like, hey man, got your strings on the way.
You know what's crazy too is like I came in. This is my favorite thing about consuming music, and there are times when I think back about the time that you were describing, like that late '90s period. I wish we could like get the world to go back to that place, like pre-cell phone. Not only because it's dividing our country, and that's terrible. We don't need to get into that, but I feel like there was like a curiosity that existed that you really had to like, it's like cracking open an encyclopedia, like to find out information. But to find music, you had to find it on like MTV, the radio, or like Much Music from Canada. I think Much Music is where I first heard 311. But my favorite thing about the experience of finding a new band is because I came in at Grassroots, but then very shortly after that, I think like Self-Titled came out. Like I had discovered it late. So like my friend played me Grassroots, and then like a week later that record came out, and it was like hit after hit after hit after hit. And I just remember being like, wow, this is such a hip idea to like fuse all these different elements of different genres and putting them together and like having your own fingerprint. And there's not much you can say about many bands in that period. Like like obviously Nirvana, obviously the grunge scene, like that was all brand new. 311, that was totally brand new. I would say the Spin Doctors, that was not happening at that time. There's a lot of stuff like that you look back and you're like, wow, there was like a serious like trailblazing moment in music history that people kind of overlook.
Totally.
And it sucks because like I would say that 311 has just been as influential as a young guitarist as Pearl Jam was to me, because it was interesting. It was dangerous. The music was dangerous. It was like standing on the edge of a knife.
But it was also like, like they had their influence and stuff, but they weren't trying to be anybody else. They were just being themselves, and they were just doing whatever it was. That's why you had like kind of rap songs, rap influence songs, rap heavy songs, heavy rock songs. Like you talk to the guys even still now, and it's like they're listening to stuff that you're like, so you listen to that and you make 311 song, it's like, but people that don't make music don't really get that. Like they don't understand that like most of your metalheads are big fans of classical music, like you don't necessarily, and I think you really shouldn't only listen to the type of music that you play. You should listen 100%. To other types of music, and then however that goes into you and then filters out is what makes it yours. And that's definitely what, the guys in 311 and a lot of like really, really good bands that I think you can really kind of see it tangibly, touch it, grab it, be consumed by it, by seeing how their fan base, is, and it spans every type, and kind of how obsessive like a fan base can get. Not many bands have their own day and have people that will, maybe put themselves in a little bit of debt just to be able to make it every single time, and it's like, that can't be downplayed. That can't be, I can't criticize that. It's like, that's passion, and we could go back talking about like Fish, it's like 311 definitely has a piece of that pie of how Grateful Dead and Fish have those fans that follow the band around. And it's not lost on the guys. It's not lost on anybody that's part of the machine, part of the crew. It's like, it's something different. But I think that just comes from the genuine kind of the core of what they're doing is so real that like it's unmistakable.
Not to mention the fact that I'm sure that they want to keep it interesting for them every night. Yeah. And because like, and for you, man, if you're switching up the set list, because they've got so much music now over the years.
It's like over 200 something songs. Like they could go a whole year where they never play the same set list twice.
Does that keep you?
It's hard to like, keep those things fresh and ready. It's like even me, if I try to go back and play songs that I haven't played in a while that I've written, I'd be like, when the fuck did I do that?
Right.
So like for them, it's, I can only speculate. It's everybody's got their own way of thinking. So it's like you're either trying to hold on, because my brain works completely different, I feel like, than a lot of people, where it's like I need to have like that muscle memory, that constant thing. And if I lay off it for a little bit too long, then it's lost on me completely. But I've seen Tim go, how do I do that? Oh man, I played this so long. And then all of a sudden he's like, he sits down and it's just like, and he just does it right away. And he's like, I don't know, is that right? I'm like, yes. He does it again. And it's like within a few minutes, Peanut too. It's like, oh, I gotta hone in this riff. I haven't played this and it's just perfect. It's like
muscle memory,
but also too, they've had those songs in their brain for, over 30 years. So of course it's going to be in there, and they played them, so much all of the years of touring, because they've never stopped touring. So it's like, even if it has been, a couple years, that 10-year period where they were playing it nonstop, and it was really fucking driven in there, and it's ingrained in their, subconscious. It doesn't take much to dust it off, and all of a sudden it's there. Yeah. But like, quick story, like you were talking about, like, the influence doesn't always have to be identical to the product. Like we were talking about, going to see the guys the first time, like you were saying your story of seeing them when you were young. And like I was telling you the story of my buddy Brent here, who's recently passed, from Mastodon. His story of, I got to introduce Tim and Peanut to him in Australia. And he's like, you're not expecting Brent Hines of Mastodon to have any kind of real thing with any connection or interest or tie or whatever. People have that thing about, metal dudes are going to like 311. But he's like, oh my God. He's like, when I was like 14, he's like, I begged my mom to take my friends and I to go see you guys in Atlanta at the Nick. He's like, and she drove us. He's like, and I sat there the whole night on Chad's drum kit. He's like, and he's talking, he's like, Peanut. He's like, you're not much older than me. He's like, so you, like, it was like being able to see you up there, same age as me. He's like, it just made me even more like addicted and more excited, and made me just want it. And I kind of looked at Tim, and they're both kind of like, wow, really?
That's crazy.
And they remember that night because, they have their own stories and memories of those kinds of things at that time, especially. So it just goes to show, like, you don't know who's got what CD in their 6-disc changer at that time,
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny, like maybe 3 years ago, I like got back into a big 311 kick. And I was cooking. I'm the cook in the house, so I was like cooking dinner. My wife works like a corporate job, and she came home. She came in the door, and she was like, "Is this 311?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh my God, I haven't heard this in forever." I was like, "I know, it's still great." Like, and it's like, it's just like really good music and really thoughtful music. And the new record is friggin' great too, the newest record. And I think that I don't know that there's a band. There's not a lot of bands that are still together.
That's very true, and that's something that I bring up to people a lot. Like when I first started with 311, and people would ask me, I hadn't seen him in a while, or hadn't seen him in a long while. They'd be like, "Oh, like, what are you up to? What are you doing?" And it was perfect timing to get back into doing this, or being tied to music to this degree when I was, because I really, really needed it. Even though I wasn't playing, I was still, I could tell the guys constantly, it's like, it's the closest I've ever gotten to my dream. It's like, it's the same dream they had, and the reason why they're doing it. It's like, I'm just standing just to the side stage, helping my boy do it, Yeah. So it's like, but I'll tell people like, yeah, out on the road touring with 311. They're like, oh, they're still doing it? Like, they're still a band. I'm like, well, were you ever a fan of theirs? They're like, well, kind of. I'm like, of course you're not going to know who's still going if you're not a fan, or you're not like, following them on a regular basis. But yeah, they've never stopped. And they're one of the few bands in the entirety of rock history that has had the same members since they like first started and broke.
So great.
Like I tell people all the time, like, think about it. Who? Pearl Jam? No.
It's so many drummers.
No. The Beatles? No. Like all of these bands, like Down, Chili Peppers? No.
And they all still get along, I'm gathering. They all still love each other. Like,
as best as you can after being with,
yeah,
35 years. Like, your life is constantly going and changing. So, you have your disagreements and,
it's
different
normal.
viewpoints on stuff. But yeah, no, that's all five of them get in the room, make jokes and to figure out a set list and write songs. And, you'll see it posted, like Nickel and SA will get together and work on lyrics and stuff. Peanut will pop over and do stuff. So it's, but also too, like anything, even like with your own friendships, like, all my friends, my best friends right now, like I'm the only non-married one, no kids. So like we don't get together as much as we normally do because they've got stuff to do. Oh, I'll work on the house, otherwise I'd have you over, or I'm gone, and they get together and they do something and I come back and no one's got time because, we're having another kid. So then we got to do this. And so yeah, life changes. Yeah. They're not in their 20s anymore, like all getting together, going to the bars. Two don't drink anymore. So it changes, but there's still united. They're still 311. They're still. I always say to people like at the core, they're still the same five guys that jumped in that Winnebago before it caught on fire.
Dude,
But
I saw Nick on Bert Kreischer's podcast. Like,
yeah.
I don't know when that was.
It was like a few months back.
Yeah. And when that popped up into my YouTube feed, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm listening to that right now. And he just seems, and I've seen other interviews with Nick and, heard him talk about music and everything and life. And he just seems like the most balanced rock star, like that you could have like on a stage. Like he seems like he's very genuinely still in love with music.
Very much, yes.
And that he's just, why would I do anything else? Kind of thing.
Honestly, and any kind of conversation that I've ever seen or heard come up with any of the guys where it was like, like, oh, what else would you be doing? They'd be like, I have no idea. Like, there is nothing, like that same thing for me. It's like, I begrudgingly had to, when my first, band attempts, everything, didn't catch on, didn't get signed, didn't blow up. I kind of had to, it was a perfect time when I was, the age where like, well, I need to make money. So then I got into doing like, working in retail, working in a restaurant, and doing this. And then it just kept going. And it was like every year my soul is sucked and, broken. And you try to, so I can only imagine for them, if this, something came up and you're like, oh, well, can't do this anymore. Like, what the,
Yeah, man. I know.
There is nothing, like it is who you are. And other musicians and other creatives understand that. Anybody else could just be like, like I was saying, like having a friend that doesn't like music is just like, whatever, okay, do something else, get a real job, get into sales. Yeah, no,
right. Yeah,
like, you don't understand. It's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you get to go around the world and you get to see, the difference between what it means to live your life every day, and then come back to America and think about living your life every day. It's like, well, I got to work. Eventually, I'm going to do that thing, and I'm going to go here and do that. Whereas you go to a country like Greece or, even like Japan, and you living is paramount and is first, and everything else is kind of balanced afterwards. Whereas here, you make plans, but it like, if you go to a Mediterranean island, everything shuts down, and you might not be able to go shopping because the guy was like, you know what, I'm going to stay at the beach today. It's like you prioritize living.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas, like, I feel like here we're just gotten stuck in this thing.
Work.
And then I'm going to live,
right.
Eventually, down the road, I'm going to make plans. I've never heard anyone ask me what my 5-year plan is outside of the United States.
Yeah. Because you know what happens, dude? We've seen it happen to like our friends' parents when we were growing up, like work. And then when I retire, we'll travel. And then they retire and then they die. Like literally, they die a year later. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, you didn't live your life, man. You didn't get to experience things. It's like, you got to live now, dude. And I feel like that's the thing so like I'm in my mid 40s and my wife and I are like, dude, if we want to go to Australia, if we want to go places where we're going to hike like Iceland and like explore, this is the time to do it. We're not going to want to do this when we're in our 60s. We're not going to be as agile or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think it's like be in the now, and do what you can while you have it.
I mean, I would say definitely over the last, like, even just few days, but even like the last couple of years, like it's just constant reminder of that doesn't, you can't plot and plan that kind of stuff. It can change at any moment. Brent was perfectly fine riding his motorcycle. Accident. He didn't die of anything other than freak occurrence. Sam Rivers just the other day from Limp Bizkit.
I know, I saw it. And then
48
D'Angelo
years. Yeah, D'Angelo.
last week. I didn't even know he was sick. Like, I don't think many people knew he was sick.
It was kept secret, but it's like, you look at you got to see Sam live over this, last few years of them touring, even just watching the footage and clips of him up on stage. And even when I saw him, last, it wasn't that he was unhealthy or, yes, in the past he had health issues, but it's like, you don't see him and be like, oh, hope he's doing all right. And it just kind of instantly, can happen like that and unplanned and all that. So
it's crazy, man.
What good is your life if you're not going to try to live it at every opportunity? And thank God for, what I'm doing right now with these guys, because I've already just in last year, we went to 5 continents, and I've never been to more than one continent in 1 year in my entire life.
Right.
It's like, I would have always loved for that to have been my way of doing things, but being able to afford it and playing, it's like this is kind of the perfect gig to do that, because I don't have to think about planning anything. I don't have to try to book anything. All I have to do is get this information sent to me, show up with everybody, and then we go.
Yeah. And
then I get to hopefully see some of the places. That's a funny question that I get from a lot of people, friends or just people I meet and talk to. They're like, oh, that's so awesome, we get to explore all these places. I'm like, hopefully some days I don't see anything but a loading dock, a stage, and then a bus.
Right.
Like I've been to this city, I've never seen this city. Luckily when we did the international stuff like Japan and Europe and Australia and England, I was able to have time. Japan, I stayed a week after. That was my first time in Japan. I was like, I'm not losing. And also, to our visas were for a lot longer than what our tour was. So I'm like, I'm not going to waste this. I'm like, I'm staying here for at least a week.
That's amazing.
My buddy Evan, the tour manager, he stayed as well because he's, also he's learning Japanese, and he's very, so it was, both of us were like, we have to stay here, we have to see this. So we kind of split and then came back, spent some days together, and then bounced out. So that was great. I needed that. Again, in England, excuse me. My mom was always like, I'm going to come to one of the shows, I'm going to come to something. And then, for her, same thing. She's like, I've always wanted to go to England and go to this place. So she's like, fuck it. So she booked first, asking people in the family, asking my aunt, asking my sisters, and no one could really commit. So she's like, well, I'm still going to go. At least just to hit up a couple spots and then see the show. And then, and then my sister joined. So then they had their own little trip. So that helped get the two of them to be somewhere in the world that they'd never been yet and wanted to go, and getting to do it together. And then I was able to then stay, and then we had that together. And then in Australia, we had free time and the ability to kind of explore and see some things. But even in the US too, we were in New York, and that's the thing, people freak out all the time when I was saying I'd never been to New York before. My life had just never taken me that way to where I'd been into New York City. I've been close to it, I've been around it, never been into Manhattan and all that. So this last summer tour we got in, and it was my first time, and we had a day off, and a crew of us just went out, and it was usually you try to blitzkrieg yourself into a day of exploring someplace, and you kind of feel, I shouldn't have even tried, because you feel like you didn't accomplish anything.
Right.
But this was the first time I was like, in a 24-hour period, I hit all of the points that you kind of say, okay, I feel confident or comfortable saying that I've been to New York and I've experienced at least of it, from riding the train, the subway, and then going to Central Park, getting the shitty hot dog, seeing some of the places where they filmed, Crocodile Dundee, which is a movie I grew up watching.
Nice.
Still do. Home Alone, getting to see these things, super touristy spots, and then meeting up with friends that live in New York and getting to just hang out at a skeezy little bar, on some random, I got to go to Katz's and eat there. And so it's you knock that stuff out of the way, and next time you go, you feel a little bit more like you have breath to not cloud your and also be like, I've already done Rockefeller Center. I've already been up top. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go see something, a little bit more rooted into what New York is,
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the beauty I found of getting to do this. And it's not lost on me, the blessing and privilege that I've gotten to do these things and, get in tomorrow, and that's fine because I'm feeling like I'm catching up on living that I didn't really get a chance to do because of, this, that, or the other.
That's amazing. But, yeah. Tom, can you talk to me? So this channel is a geeky gear channel. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a lot of people that subscribe to my channel.
Yeah, I'm sitting here geeking out on your 2-rock.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Man, you know what's funny is that amp, I haven't taken it out to a bunch of gigs lately. I have this other little amp behind me. Not that PV.
I wish I still had my PV Bandit.
Dude, that was a great amp, man.
It was.
It was an awesome amp. That's my original. That is my amp from when I was in 6th grade. Yeah. And it's the PV Rage 108. But that 2-rock, dude, like I haven't been taking it out a lot recently. I've been taking that red amp, and I was like, oh, this amp competes really well with the 2-rock. So why do I need to take this really expensive thing out to a bar gig? And then I beat them the other day. I was like, no, it does not compete at all. At all.
Well, like your Marty Shorts episode, he was using his Boss Katana. Yeah. And that's my bedroom amp. And he's right. Like when you DI that thing in, like when those first came out, it was when I was working at the Guitar Showcase in San Jose. And I mean, that suddenly became, that's the only thing that we would really recommend to anybody that wanted something of just like a kind of a, even going live, it was good. But like if you're a home person, if you're a kid, like it's perfect, especially nowadays with most every kid being savvy on computer stuff. Like you plug that in and it has a huge array of options. Like, because up until that point, I would never practice or do anything plugged in. Like every now and then I would go and work on stuff and use my effects and everything, but 99% of my sitting down in my room or whatever, practicing, trying to learn something, trying to write something, was just an electric guitar, not plugged in.
Yeah.
And when I got the Boss Katana, being able to go down to half a watt, have a little bit of reverb, and maybe add on a little bit of distortion or something, overdrive or delay or whatever, but just at least having the quietness of being in your room. Because also too, like, like a lot of people, if you're working on something, you don't want anybody to hear your mess ups. Or,
you don't want the clams audible.
Yeah. So like having half a watt, so you still had that feel. And I was like, oh, why haven't I been doing this all this time? And then, it goes into, it's like having something like a attenuator or like the aux box, like that thing, I think is one of the greatest inventions ever, because you can use a 2-rock in that room and not bother your kids, not bother your wife.
Totally.
Not bother your neighbors, you still get that tone, you get that feel. And that really, really, I think goes so far in feeling like you're actually accomplishing something, and helps motivate, because we've all been in that kind of stifled feeling like you've hit a wall and you've like, why do I even bother? Like, why do I even do this? But it's like sometimes just being able to have that little bit of extra tone where it's like, oh, that actually sounds like something. Whereas like, you can sit there and play a line and you're like, I know I'm hitting the notes right. And it's like, I've heard the song enough to I know that I'm doing it right and it's there, but not having it have sustain or having whatever kind of makes you feel like, am I getting it though? Like, have I even really done anything? So having that extra little bit, like really for me, I found is kind of helped get me out of those kind of moments of like, I should just put this down and walk away for a few hours or a few days. It's kind of made me feel like, oh, I just need to maybe just see what it sounds like with a little bit of delay. And, oh, wow. Now, so yeah, I think those are the kinds of things that I nerd out and geek out about first, because the feeling of losing touch of your talent or your abilities by just losing in the what you're hearing and how you're feeling it. You kind of get in your own head. I'm an overthinker, so I probably do it more than a lot of people. I think that really helps push you past that and then you convince yourself to keep going. And I've suggested it because I'll have, just recently we were on tour for the summer, and I can't remember what city we were in, but we have the local hands that help us unload everything and set up the stages and all that. There was a young kid, and he was kind of lingering. I always seem to get most of them always seem to linger around my side and my stuff. Right. I don't know why, and it's kind of become a joke. I'll look at Brian, our stage manager, Chad's drum tech, and I'll just kind of look at him and be like, and he'll just start laughing because it's literally like you can predict it. 5, 6, 10 of them will just kind of be hovering around like Tim's pedal board case or just right in my stage right world. So there's one, young kid was hanging out and he was kind of lingering. I could kind of overhear he was saying something to the lead, the Stu, and I could just hear the guy. It was a big boom, so I could not hear him. He's like, "We'll just go over there and ask him." And I turn around, I look, I'm like, "What's up, dude?" He comes over, he's like, "Hey, so I'm getting into playing, and and he reads me his gear. He's like, got this bass and I've got this amp, but me and my friends kind of want to do something more." He's like, "So what do you think?" And I'm like, "All right, dude, guitar wise, get a Boss Katana. You can either get the little one like I've got, you can get the head and cab version of it. I'm like, I would say easy. It's not stupid expensive. It's not, your parents aren't going to be like, how dare you ask for a Marshall GCM 800 or whatever." Right. I'm like, "Are you good with computers?" He's like, yeah. I'm like, "Okay, perfect. USB out, plugged her in. You can put your headphones in and twiddle the stuff. No one will hear you except for just the acousticness of your guitar being strung. Bass wise, Fender Rumble. You can use that, in most places that you're going to be playing with your friends. That'll do more than enough. You probably won't even have to mic it. I think those have direct outs now as well. I'm like, so I'm getting to talk to this, and that's the thing, is a lot of people will you'll come across guys and people in the industry that are like, "Why are you wasting your time talking to this person or doing this?" And I'm like, I'll waste my time going and talking to a kid because that was me. I'll go find a kid on the rail and I'll give him a set list, or I'll stop and let him tell me the story of, whatever, or I'll see a dad and a kid or a parent and a kid. I'm like, that's me. So you can get mad at me. I don't care. This is a hill I will die on. I know I'm supposed to be doing something right now, but this kid is asking me questions about this or wanting that connection. If I'm a dick to him and I'm saying, "No, fuck off," or I'm ignoring him, that could be something that sticks with him. And then it's like we're talking about, you never know what influence in the developmental stage was important to someone. Like I have those core memories where I can think back on, and like getting to meet BB King and sit and eat grapes with him backstage, huge. George Thorogood, tossing me a sweaty towel and whatever, getting to eat pancakes in Catalina with Tommy Castro and like all these different things.
I thought you were going to say Prince. I was like, if you tell me you had pancakes with Prince.
No, I had it was a lesser kind of pancake situation. But,
dude, Tom,
it's like, so
let me. We're gonna run out of time, and I gotta ask you this. I don't want to take up your whole night because we could talk. So I want to ask you as a gear nut. And I also want to talk to you about modelers too, but not right this second.
Beautiful.
But okay. So as far as like your duties on stage, so you're working with Tim stuff, Peanut stuff, and are you working with Nick stuff too?
So I'm the only one right now that has done both or has done multiple positions.
Okay.
So that's kind of why I got the joking moniker of the bitexual.
Okay.
Because I started on stage right with Tim. So one of my really, really good friends who I love dearly, I grew up with doing music locally in San Jose and Campbell, Ryan Hernandez, he was kind of one of the heroes of the local music scene in the Bay Area with his band Downside, which then became the band Strata. So he was Tim's tech for a long time. And then he was going to have a kid, going to be a dad. So he had tried getting me tech jobs, and it just never worked. This time it was perfect. So I came in, started on stage right. And then when he came back, the guy that was doing stage left, he got some booking conflicts, and it was just like, all right, well, you can do stage left, right? I was like, yeah. Nick uses Kempers. I'm like, that's not how I work. That's not at all my immediate kind of way. That's not the kind of stuff I like. I'm like, but I'll figure it out. I can figure out anything. Some I can figure out quick. Other stuff, it might take me a little bit of a learning curve. And then bases, Peanut stuff, again, easy. Pedal boards, all that was good. So I went over to stage left. So yeah, I was doing Tim and SA with his, SA doesn't require much, just got to make sure that DJ rig works. And also you got to decorrode it sometimes because he sweats a lot. And then Nick and Peanut is kind of like the kind of the opposite world because it's wireless, it's Kemper, it's digital. So
is Peanut using modelers too?
No. But he uses wireless, stuff, and so there's that kind of aspect of what's going wrong, and it's like, it's the bad cable with that kind of stuff. For me, it's kind of I attribute it to Wonka vision, like what's happening. I don't know. It's up in our head, a million pieces. I don't know. It's in the ether somewhere. I gotta go in and find a drop down menu. There's an antenna that's a little bit off, or it's a battery's dying. It's like, analog stuff. It's a little bit quick and easier for me to be like, that sounds like a power tube, or that sounds like a bad cable. Whereas, why isn't this working? I don't know, because some gremlin in the computer decided to uncheck a couple boxes and now it's not going to MIDI. What's MIDI? I don't even know what MIDI is.
Who does? Let's be honest. What's Peanut's rig right now?
So Giano, the stage left tech, he and Peanut went through, and Jeff, our production manager, monitor guy, they went through some power, some preamp stuff. And honestly, I'm not actually positive what they landed on and what they're using currently. He just changed a whole new rig. And just when we were doing this last show, there was still some new things getting built and put in. But for the longest time, he was using the Warwick Hellborg stuff. And he was kind of the only guy in the world that was using them. Mm-hmm. And the reason that his rig has been getting kind of rebuilt and kind of modernized is because since the Hellborg line didn't have such a huge success in the industry and in the market, Warwick kind of abandoned any relationship to the product in any way, shape, or form. So as Peanut was touring with it constantly, it was his touring rig, it was his recording rig, it was the backup fly rig. But, when they started having issues, there was nobody to work on them. And Warwick wasn't supporting them because they're like, I reached out to them and they're like, yeah, we don't, it's almost as if they took all the paperwork, went outside and found a 50-gallon drum and just burnt everything. And then like, there was no components, there's no parts, there's no schematics. So I'd reach out to these amp guys and they'd be like, we can try, but we don't know. It's solid state stuff. It was just tricky. So, they're great amps. So you were kind of relegated to a point of time where we just had to find dudes that had them and buy new ones, or buy ones secondhand from people. So we were doing that for a while. And then, I kind of told him, I was like, at some point we might reach a point where you're going to be forced to make a new amp choice, or preamp choice. The power amps seem to be good, so we can still roll those. And then when I moved over and, other guys were coming in on his side, it seemed like the discussion. And then he was very much like, let's look into new stuff. Let's go try some things. So when we were in Nashville, the three of those guys went and checked out some Neve, some Neve preamp stuff.
Dang, that's cool.
And that might be what they landed on.
Man. Well, then
it was just like, but even Warwick was saying like, yeah, we're going to make up we're kind of taking that amp and doing something new. We'll let you know when that comes out. And I still haven't heard anything about this. I don't know where that project of theirs landed. But my suggestion was like, let's take your Hellborg stuff that's working and it's working good. Let's put that at the Hive and keep it there. And that can be your studio. You can maintain that, the longevity of it, because it's not being battered on the road and all that. And if you love the sound of it, that can be recording stuff and your writing stuff and all that. But let's get something newer that is more supported, because you don't want to be stuck on the road trying to figure out some way to fix something and not have any, especially if the backup stuff goes out as well, and then you're scrambling trying to find an amp repair dude that is willing to, and things can go wrong, and then it's not easy to just find a second one, and there's each of the guys have some sort of piece of gear that is like kind of on the rare end, or like a one-off, and it's not quick and easy to swap in something else, right. And then kind of reliant on it, which, I relate to. I have stuff like that as well. And it's like, well, this is part of my tone. This is part of me, because your rig is really, just an extension of who you are. And it's very much, if you go and you stand back and you really look at it and you analyze it, you're like, oh yeah, like that rig, that's Peanut. That rig, that's Nick. That kit, that everything, that's Chad. That's Essay.
Right.
Tim's rig, that's fucking Tim. Down to like, the pedals and the cables and all that kind of stuff.
It's a Freudian thing, man. You can put people on the couch and like just by looking at their gear, I never really thought about it that way.
You know a lot about a man by his shoes.
Is Tim, is he playing Mesas? Like, what is he playing through these days?
Yeah. So right now, our main rig, for the long time, it's been a Bogner Uberschall for the rock heavy dirty stuff, and then a Mesa Boogie Mark V for the clean.
Ooh, cool.
Mark 7 gets popped in now and then. That's going to be most likely what we take and use for the Miami show, and then the Mexico City South America tour. But that one, a Super Kraken from Victory, is going to probably be the dirty amp for that. Nice. And then Tim is also finally getting the chance to scratch his itch of working and figuring out what synergy stuff
really
works for him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But for the main rig, the Uberschall and the Mark V have been the kind of, it always comes back to that since I've been around. Swapped it out a few times. We're doing a while where the diamonds came back in, the Phantom for the clean, which is great when you have an amp like that can do really, really good dirty and really, really good clean. Because for a long time he was like all diamond. He was multiple diamond heads for dirty and clean, diamond cabs, and then we'll throw in a Fender Twin Reverb, or a Deluxe, and for Tim, the clean is always the one that's like, there could be something else there, So when I first started, I was like, we still didn't know each other all that well. And I was, standing there with my friends. So it was like, with Ryan, we'd be talking about stuff, and, he'd be bringing up amps, because the conversation kind of will always come to gear no matter what. If I'm at his house or we're going to his kid's baseball game, you might, oh, hey, that pedal, did you talk to,
my kind of man.
Yeah. It's like, it's never in. He's always thinking about, tone and chasing stuff. He's always watching, Tom Bukovac and all these dudes on YouTube and stuff. And, it's just, again, like I said, it's an identity. It's who he is.
His cleans, by the way, are always, I feel like his cleans have always had this three-dimensional.
Right. And that's why he's always so like, is there something better that we can get or something more, So like with the Victory stuff, I suggested it when I think even the first day that I was on stage, helping out and working and learning the rig. And I was like, do you think about those? And you can suggest something to him, and then it'll take a while, he'll rarely just be right away like, yeah, sure, let's try that. He needs to like
research it,
think about it, and make sure it feels right, and kind of, it's cautious because he doesn't want, you never want to make a misstep, especially in that, because, like you said, it's such a good, long running thing of, his tones been so kind of
iconic
fingerprint, to him, that it's like, you want it to be perfect. You want it to be the best you can possibly do, not only for him, but for everybody standing there listening and watching. So the Super Duchess got sent over to us, along with the Super Kraken, which was something that, like 3 years of like, remember there's those Victories that I really like, maybe you should try those. And then when we were in Australia and we were doing the Good Things festivals, and Mastodon was there doing stuff, and I was over there, and I was, watching and hanging out, Brent and everybody. And I came back, I was like, yo, Mike, Brent's running the Victory stuff like I told you. And he's like, oh, yeah? Okay. So sometimes it takes like seeing someone else, like, not that he doesn't, take my opinion or my suggestions, to heart, but it's like sometimes it seems someone else using it in real time, kind of validates, it totally validates it.
They make great stuff too, man.
Oh, they're amazing.
I've been looking at the Deputy, dude, like lately.
Yeah.
That's a killer amp.
Yeah, they've just, since they came out, and I was working at that shop, Guitar Showcase, when they were like first coming out, and so I've kind of watched their line grow, and my buddy Tooch he's Corey Taylor's guitar player. He's another guy that uses those things religiously, the lunchbox ones, and it's the Sheriff is Brent was part of designing that one, and it's just such a great amp. And now they've just exploded into making all these. They got the combos, they've got the
well, now they
got the big ones.
They got the MK cleans now too.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he would dig that.
Yeah. So Alex, the guy over at Victory, he's an amazing guy. He was with Orange, and then with Victory, and he's just, and it helps too. When I reach out to these companies, or if Tim's like, yeah, let's look into something of this one, and I'll reach out and be like, hey, introduce myself, like and they're like always, I would say 8 out of 10 times the person will come back, oh yeah, that's absolutely great, I would love to help you. Thing is, I'm such a huge Tim Mahoney 311 fan that I'm even more like wanting to help you out. It's like, right. Tim, it's like he's probably one of the most modest of the amazing guitar players, and that he is always like, I don't want to bother anybody. It's like, Dave Friedman's house is literally behind the Hive. It's like he's like, I've always wanted to try this Friedman amp. It's like, let's ask him. Like, ask you're Tim Mahoney of 311. Like, ask him. I'm sure he'll let you borrow one, or maybe he'll give you one, or maybe you'll the conversation. Like, give yourself the credit I think that you've earned over doing all these years. So it's like, it's always funny. Like when I reached out to Victory and he's like, let's do it. Let's try him out. And I was like, let's see what we can get. And Alex comes back being like, whatever you guys want, let's do this. He's like, that's awesome. He's like, I love 311. I love Tim. So he's been great. He came out to the Birmingham show, and we got to use the Super Kraken for the first time live when we did this like one-off show during the tour where we were in Arizona, and then we had a show in Paso Robles, but the next show after that was in Minnesota. So the main gear left Arizona, went to Minnesota, and then we had we made up new B rigs, and Tim's like, all right, let's use the Super Kraken for the Dirty for the show. And it was like, as soon as we plugged that amp in, Scotch, the front of house guy, who's always every time we set up on stage, he's always like, let's change, oh wait, this sounds weird, or like, oh, let's move that mic over here, did you guys do something different? Or he's always doing his job trying to figure out what's going to sound best. As soon as I turned that amp, even had Tim had never used it with the band and never used it on stage. I plugged it in, went to turn it on. I didn't touch anything because I know Tim had been messing with it and he had it set where he wanted. I was waiting for him to come, but I just turned it on and started going. And the first things out of Scotch's mouth were, what is that? And can that be the new main sound?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
that's so great, dude.
And then the Super Duchess, like I just saw Tim the other day and he was like, oh man. He's like, after we were done with the San Diego show, he got home. He's like, I plugged into the Super Duchess yesterday. He's like, that thing sounds fucking amazing. He's like, it sounds way better than I remember. Like,
so is he about to do a full Victory turn?
I don't think we're gonna go a full like A rig. It you never know. It could potentially become the A rig backup stuff. But he's definitely excited about it.
That's fun, man.
It's for sure in the running to be like the backup or the B rig, which is the stuff we will take for like fly dates. Because that's the great thing about Victory too, is they're compact. Fit in a Pelican, and it's good to go. So I let him. I don't push for any changes on him. I'll simply make a suggestion and tell him kind of what I think. And then wait for him to kind of come back with what he, I kind of hands off at certain times, especially he works really closely with Dave Phillips at LA Sound to build like his pedal boards and stuff.
Oh, right.
So doing that right now for the fly stuff we're doing. And I kind of let him do his thing. He's doing a lot longer than I have, so I know where my, because that's the things, people have tried to come and push like, you should just use this, you should fuck all this stuff off, and this is the way to go, modelers, new stuff, and he's like, don't you dare fucking, and it's like anytime someone's like on that kick and like that's going to be what they're going to say, you see him coming, he's like, oh, here comes the modeler talk again. It's like it's almost insulting.
I know, but
for him,
it's gotta feel good to you though that you make a suggestion and he digs it. You know what I mean? Like
even when he doesn't like it, it's like at least I feel better knowing that like it's something that I put out there, and just because it worked for me and I really like it, and just because he and I have similar likes and interests, and there's also where we very much differ. And at the heart of it, no matter what, with any of the guys, my job is not to control them. It's just to help control what they have and what they work with and what they want and what they need, so that they don't have to worry about it. So yes, there is sometimes a little bit of self-interest where you're like, oh, I'm going to suggest this because I know how to work with it in and out, quick, easy. I know it backwards and forwards. I know it's efficiency. I know it's this, but also too, it's my comfortability. So it's almost brainless. I don't have to think about it. If they bring in something that's new to me and it's something that I'm, then okay, then there's that learning curve. But that's what you want. So cool. I'll spend how much time I need to become a master at it. And then that way, I'm familiar with, being able to stand on stage. And if I'm not looking and I hear something funny, I'm like, I know what that is, I can quickly go and get it. But if it's something I'm not familiar with, it's just, and I think it's another reason why, Tim might not always like things that like just spontaneous changes, because he's very much a feel guy. It could sound exactly the same, but if it doesn't feel right, like we were doing the cruise and we were using the Offender Deluxe head as the clean, and just things just weren't. And if anybody was there on the cruise, you might have been able to tell, like he was just kind of like kept turning around. He's like, this isn't like something's not right. He come over, he's like, did something change? Did something happen? And it's like, I think maybe all guitar players might be, having that experience of nothing's changed from the time you had it turned on yesterday, but today something, and it's sometimes it's in your ears and it's in your, the way you're feeling in your head, and the way you're filtering it. And mid song, like, oh, there's no clean in this. So as he's playing, I'm taking out the deluxe and I'm putting back in the twin or whatever that we had in there, and it was like, then after that, the feel was, you felt it was back. But then, months later, the conversation is like, I don't know, we always have the deluxe. I'm like, well, you remember the last time we had the deluxe in there, you didn't feel like it had enough headroom for you. So it was,
yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah, you're right. So, it's just one of those endless conversations, and like I said, it's the clean for him is always,
Yeah, he likes those big cleans, huh? Like he likes those big, like juicy cleans.
Yeah, I mean, think of the start all mixed up.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't have a good clean, that doesn't really hit right. Amber, doesn't really hit right. So you need something that's a good clean, but it's a good pedal platform.
Dude, what envelope filter is that?
So live, it's the Microtron, the like Mutron, a little blue. Oh,
yeah. Okay.
But it can also be a Qtron.
Okay.
Because back in the day, he used to tour with the huge original big Mutron.
Right, like the Jerry Mutron.
Yeah, but what is the company? Micro Effects, I think, is the guys that do that.
Dude, I've been trying to get that fucking tone for 20 years, and I found something. Have you ever heard of Emma Electronics?
Maybe if I saw, not by name.
There's an envelope filter that's called the discombobulator. And it is the closest thing I've found. I played so many envelope filters. It's the closest thing I found to like that Jerry bubble burst.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorites, since one of Tim uses. It's Mu Effects by Mike Bagel, the Microtron.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I've seen that.
So that's the main one on the board. So for Amber, it's that. All of the womp, 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 womp. That's all that. Yeah. There is a Boss Dynamic wah in there for like full bloom.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the thing we call the party board, which is the little sideboard on the side. If you've ever seen his pedal board setup, he has this big main mothership board, and then off to the side there's a little annex board, and we call that party board.
Just fun gadgets on the rig?
Yeah, it's usually so like you're gonna get it is the clean part is primarily on that board because there's another delay on there, and then there's the synth wah, the dynamic wah, a MXR micro flanger, the one that it's not the super vintage one where it had like the hardwire cable coming out of it, but it was the small box, but it didn't have a light yet.
Oh, I know
so
what
one
you're
of
talking
those. About. Sometimes I'll have one of those electroharmonics, like was it 720 delay looper things on there. It's kind of just an extra place to have more stuff for ideas. Sometimes there's some sets like I don't think on the Bayfest set list, I don't think anything even got used on that. But and then when I first started, I think for the first year we didn't use the party board at all, and then it made its return. But it's just an ability to make sure he has the things that he wants and might want to use. And I'll still see him sometimes. Some sets like try something new where you think like, oh, he's got it pretty locked in, and it's this pedal to this pedal to this pedal, which helps me because I can always, if you ever stand and like watch me during the set, I pretty much have it memorized when he's turning things on and off, and I can catch it because sometimes, like anybody, whatever's going on, he'll like forget to turn something off, and I'll be looking, and I'm like,
should I run out there and
press it? Well, because the next song's coming, and I'm like, if he starts playing right now, that's not going to be right. And I'm like, it should. But sometimes he'll still like do something random, and he'll experiment, and he'll try something new, and he'll just kind of do a quick little. And usually it's really good,
Yeah, and he's still all PRS too, right? Like, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
I mean, he's been with them for longer than anybody.
Yeah, and like that Winnebago fire, like he lost his first one, so they all lost their first gear in that, and they were still new. I don't want to say they were nobody at that time, but they were in relationship to what they are now, or a lot of the other bands at that time. Like especially for a company like PRS that was still young, they were just 5 guys in Winnebago starting out. PRS was like almost immediately, it's like, yes, we'll send you something new right now, and he still got it.
That's amazing.
And weirdly, having been a PRS guy solely for all of those years, just this last tour was the first time he'd ever set foot at that factory.
Really?
Tour and got to sit down. I mean, he's done like sit downs and
like
publicity things and stuff with Paul and all that kind of stuff, but had never been to the factory, had never done the tour, never got all that kind of he's welcome Tim Mahoney to the the home that you helped build by being such a face.
Flag. Yeah. I'm a Maryland boy, man. So I mean, I'm sitting in Maryland right now. So it's funny. It's like, and I said this. I had this conversation last week too with somebody about PRS, but I've owned 4 of them, and I've sold all of them. And there's something there's something about the neck. There's something that I just don't get along with, and I don't know what it is, but I love the Silver Sky. I mean, I borrowed one of those one time. I was like, oh, I could see that I would stick around with this, but I have a custom shop Strat that I bought when I turned 40. That is amazing. Yeah. So it's like, why would I do that? I already have another Strat. Like my old Strat from the 90s is there too. I'm like, do I need another Strat? Like,
I'm a Strat guy too, and I've been buying Strats constantly for my whole life. So yes, and one of my best friends used to always say when I'd be like, "Oh, I got a new guitar," he's like, "I swear to God," he's like, "If you bought another fucking Strat." But the thing with like, I kind of get what you're saying. Like I'm kind of like that way with Les Pauls. Like I can't just get any Les Paul. I've had 2. My first one was stolen. Second one I sadly sold like an idiot. But I've only come across a few that I was like, oh yeah, this could be the one. I definitely want it, but I can't just go to a store, grab even when we were in Nashville, I mean, it was a little bit better this time, but we went to the Gibson factory, and then went to the Gibson garage, and I was grabbing some different ones, and I was like, yeah, but like, I need to feel that, kind of I can't leave this guitar.
Right.
I just got one of the Brent Hines Epiphone Flying V's, and that thing I was like, oh wow, man, Epiphone's come a long fucking way. And that was, that's from 2017, so it's like I've kind of been missing out on their quality of stuff for a while. But with PRS, I think with me, like I've always said, being a Strat guy, PRSs are the easiest. If you're looking for a humbucking guitar and you don't want to have a humbucking like super Strat, Paul Reed Smith is, I think, the easiest transition step to go in that direction for a Strat player, because they're based in kind of the same body shape and feel and comfort. The necks, like even I'm still not completely savvy on because they've got more neck options, I think, than Fender and Gibson, all of that. You've got the pattern thin, the pattern regular, all these kinds of things.
Right.
So I was in kind of the same boat as you, but then once I started realizing that there were such drastic changes in the neck shapes, and I started being aware of that, like whatever necks Tim uses and always has on his, even though, the ones that are custom, obviously, but like all of his neck shapes, because he likes a little bit more, kind of smaller, shreddy, kind of on that end, not big fat baseballs and, deep, like D's and C, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's that, my friend Ryan.
What models does he play? Not to cut you off.
Custom 24.
Okay.
But with the solid, with the stop tail, no trim. He's got a few that have trims, but some people don't like that that kind of floating trim thing that PRS does. Like on a Strat, you can have it down against the body. No matter what you do on a PRS one, you still have that little bit of, like, if you palm mute, because he's a palm muting guy. Mm-hmm. So he's just muscle memory knows on, a stop tail where to put his hand and not really think about it. And also 24 fret scale is part of the muscle memory. So if you give him a McCarty with 22, it's like he might stop a fret too short.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're, he wants to, he hasn't gotten a new guitar in a while, or custom ordered a new guitar in a while, and so he's kind of itching on that. Mm-hmm. PRS sent him out a couple guitars start of this year for the summer tour to try out. So the new custom 2408 in the Aurora Borealis, which is an amazing guitar.
What pickups are in that now?
It's these new what do they call them, TCMs or something like that. And you have that ability to split coil and do humbucker. And I found, and I'd be sitting there noodling, and I found if you were in like the neck position or in the middle position and you did full humbucker in the neck and a single coil in the bridge, it was like almost the perfect, almost like single coil Strat tone, because it was so full, but it still had that clarity bite to it. So I'd be sitting there playing like really reverby, washy delay with a little bit overdrive stuff in these rooms, and I'd be like, I need one of these. I could live in this sound. But so you're sold, one of those.
You're sold on PRS. You're like, they're great. I love them.
More than I was before. Like I had a custom 22, or no, standard 22 stop tail, kind of like a raw mahogany, and that was my first PRS that I had gotten, and I got that. It was like a late 2010s, sorry. And I loved that thing. It's got the Dragon 2 pickups in it, and those things, which Tim used for a while. And I brought it out and let him play it, and he's like, "Oh wow!" Like this thing, and that was always my thing. It's like if I wanted to get his stamp of approval on my PRS, but like he's got they sent out a McCarty for him to check out, which we used for a few shows for the Drop D songs. But again, being a scale, he's like, I think this. He's like, this will kind of fit me more as like a studio recording thing. He just likes having that 22 or the 24 fret scale and option.
Yeah.
And then the neck on that one, because that one is pretty much like it was the most McCarty Les Paul-ish type. Like it had a fatter neck on it. It was in the full-on sunburst with the binding. I mean, it looked like a Les Paul that had just been bippity boppity booped PRS.
Yeah.
But
those pickups are great though. Was it the 5815 pickups in that? Those pickups sound good, man. There's like they're kind of airy and articulate, and I do think that those pickups, there's something special about those for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so the majority of his main guitars are custom 24s. Like his two blues, they're just all mahogany. The one we call New Blue, which is what he's been using as the main guitar this last year, was 2011, I think is when they made that one and gave it to him. They lucked out that day and got one of the lightest pieces of wood for that, because that thing is like a feather compared to Old Blue, the one that everyone knows and the one that they based his little signature SE on. It's a great guitar, but it's just a little bit heavier. And it's got the road wear, and it's just got, we just sent it to PRS to have refretted for the first time, or maybe second time, and of course came back perfect. The first one we left with him with the factory to get done was the one we call Blonde, which has a twin sister, we call T-Shell, which T-Shell has been the drop D guitar for the last few years, and Blonde was his main one when I started, and it's again just a custom 24. He wanted the private stock bird inlay on the head stock for that one, and it's just got a really beautiful figured piece of maple top. And we had that one refritted. So now you can go back, and that was from 1996, and he's toured that guitar.
That's probably when I saw him, he probably was playing that guitar. But
you can find pictures, like if you follow 311 Archive on Instagram, they'll post a bunch of like old stuff, and you'll see old club photos of like skinny them, no shirts, and like Tim's playing Blonde. Or I think just yesterday or the day before, they reposted the clip from it was an MTV like Carson Daly thing on the beach from the era of
Spring Break.
Yeah, bleached hair Nick with the necklace, with the necklace chokers, and pretty sure that performance he's playing Blonde. And when we took it to the factory and popped it out and handed it over to them, to Paul, and he's kind of like, it was kind of like saying, "There's no fucking way you've been touring this guitar since 1996, because it's not beat up. It's got a little bit of thing in there, but and I say it, we started doing these stage tours where VIP package, the fans can come, and we walk them backstage, we walk them up on stage, we go to each person's little area and do a rundown pretty much. And I kind of get to that point, and I show people the guitars, and it's like, yeah, you can see a little bit of like buckle rash on the back, and maybe a little dimple here on the corner, but it doesn't look like a guitar that's been out on the road nonstop like they've been doing since 1996, and also being the main guitar for a lot of that time, because Tim's as you've all seen, like he's an aggressive player, but he's a precise aggressive player, right. He's not battering his shit. He's not like
he's not Mike McReadying his Strat into his pedal board.
Yeah, he's not doing that kind of stuff. And like I've said, that also the people I think that have the most opportunity and chance to add excessive wear and tear on his stuff is us, the techs. So it's like it's a commendament to all of the guys before me how well they've taken care of Tim's guitars, and then it's just an added thing on top of me to be like, I have to keep that going. It's like, one, I don't want him to see me, but also two, it's like I almost have the ghost of all of the techs before me being like,
don't mess this up.
Don't, like, this is on you now.
Are those guitars sprayed with poly, or are they nitro?
They're nitro.
That's crazy.
I don't think they've ever done poly. I think that's something I remember Paul saying on the factory tour. He's just like, not happening, not poly.
Yeah, that is surprising that there's not a lot of wear then. All the sweat and like
Tim's not a like. I think SA does enough sweating for the band. If you've ever seen it, Tim, yeah, he doesn't get overly like drenched and he's not dripping all over the place. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm sweating on his guitars more. So you'll see me like with a towel wrapped around it because I'm standing up there and I'm just like, you know, I told him to come out and just like grab it and like, thanks. And then put it,
why is it wet, dude?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Tom, that's awesome. So, well, I don't want to hold you up, man. I want to, I just, I felt like I wanted to ask you about that stuff because I know people would find it interesting about the gear and everything. And
yeah,
it's funny. Like, we don't have to have a long conversation about modelers, but it is funny because did you see all the stuff about the new Helix, that Stadium XL? Have you seen like information about that?
Not really. I know I'm aware of it, but I haven't really looked into it.
Trust me, I'm an analog guy. I have an amazing amp that I absolutely love, but I'm kind of curious about trying it.
Well, I'm definitely curious about it. You know, it's like when I was working with Nick's stuff and his Kempers and always like, okay, like that was my first real deep dive into dealing with one of those on a regular basis every single day and kind of having to figure out their weird quirks and how they work and all that. You know, and so I was like, okay, I guess I could grab one of these and have it at home and have it be something just, you know, as a writing tool, is like something to, you know, like I was talking about the inspiration thing. It's like you add something new, you know, it's like you can either try different tuning or try different, you know, string gauge or try a different amp and see what, you know, little hidden secrets are in there for your, you know, inspiration sparks. So like I get it. But I mean, just look at, you know, Steph Carpenter's most recent rundown. He's now running like 6 Uber shawls. He's like, I had to get rid of the modeling stuff. He's like, I don't know what I was doing, you know? And it's like, but it's not saying it's not something to use. It's just not something that everyone can use, you know, like Chiano on Stage Left, like he's a big, and that's kind of why he does really good with Nick's gears, because he's a Kemper dude, you know, and he is able to go in there and know blah, 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 like what to do and kind of the best ways to tweak this and tweak that better than I was at the time. Because like, you know, there was some days where I was like trying to work on something and it was taking me longer because it's not how my brain works. I mean, even just trying to get this borrowed laptop to work earlier today, I'm sitting here like, I might just have to do this on my phone. Because honestly, this is the most computer thing I use.
Yeah, me too.
I don't spend any time on computers. I don't use computers. I know how to use them, but they physically make me hurt. My body starts to be like, so like analog stuff, 1/4-inch cables, tubes, pedals, you know, I've been able to run out on stage and diagnose something and fix it because it's analog, because it's something I can tangibly touch and replace. Like I said, if you're doing something on Kemper on the fly, you got to reboot it.
You don't even know.
You are stuck to how long it takes something digital to power down and then power back up, you know, and that can be 2 songs off the set list if you're just sitting there trying to vamp and, you know.
Right. Luckily, Nick, there's things where he can just sing, you know.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
But I would say, does he have the floor model too, or is he using like a switcher to like?
That's in the rig.
Okay.
We would use that as like emergency things, like when I was over there and You're Gonna Get It was just written and then just starting to get played, I would do the changes. Because like his old tech back in the day, when he was using pedals, you know, before the modeler stuff, when he had a pedal board and everything like that stuff, he was off. That was all off on Stage Left with his old tech, Eric Hillman. And he was doing all of the switching. So it kind of crossed over a little bit to that still before it got, you know, the MIDI program and all that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like, I'd know when he changed, you know, so it was only 2 changes. It was going from a clean sound to a dirty sound back to the clean sound dirty. So that the switcher, the pedal board is there, but it's just in the rack, just as a, like, one thing you can visually stand there and see just to make sure that things are changing as they're supposed to be. And also too, if there's an emergency, which also has happened where something went funny in playback or whatever, MIDI switchers weren't happening. And I'm like, oh, it's coming. Ah, shit. And I'd have to go over and be like, I think it's right now. Oof. You know? But yeah, there's emergencies. And if need be, in the past, we were like, well, if we're having a problem, maybe we just run this out there and then he can do it. But it's better to not have him have to think about it. That way he can stay in his, you know, in his element,
man
kind
world,
of in his thing, you know, and not have to worry. And that's another reason why you kind of do that for someone, because you're saying he's not playing on every song, and you're trying to make the performance a little bit more kind of just I'm on you guys. I'm not on this, you know?
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. I feel like
yeah,
that allows him to be the artist he is, you know,
yeah.
like,
And I will say, like, I feel like there's a new era of frontman Nick coming because he's been doing his solo stuff.
mhm.
And I got to see the last show, the Troubadour, and it was like I was seeing like did I walk into like a parallel universe? Like this is a different like you know when you go from being on like that kind of level stages and then you start doing the little stuff again, you know, it's like probably nerve wracking because I think most people are, it's like I can be more comfortable playing to 1,000 people than I am playing to 2 people, like sitting right in front of me, like hand you a guitar, like play. It's like I don't remember how to play anything. You're too close. You're seeing everything I'm doing. You know, usually when you're up there and it's like a sea of people, you're kind of like disconnected a little bit. But it was like you know, it's nice to have that kind of juxtaposition of like massive crowd festival, big stage. Now you're just standing one microphone, like everyone around, and you're just kind of there. You're just doing it. It's raw and it's real. So that's kind of doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but just something that popped in my head about.
I think it's
Nick and his thing.
That's what I kind of felt when I watched that podcast with Bert. Is it felt like, for lack of a better way to describe it, it felt like Nick was almost describing like a new lease on life in terms of like almost like passion restored or rejuvenated, or any way you want to slice it. It seems like creatively and artistically and performance wise, it seems like he was just like, you know, I'm kind of embracing it more, or like I have a new lease on life with it in a way.
Yeah. And I told him that, you know, I was like, just from my own personal viewpoint and opinion, like having seen him do, you know, all the 311 stuff and all those things and all these shows and all these performances, getting to see him do his just raw acoustic, here I am. It's just me. I got nothing else going on other than just us, these guys, and this. I was like, I saw a version of you that I feel like, as at this point in your growth in your life, I'm like, that is probably the purest you that I've gotten the chance to see, because it's everything that you have done up to this point and all of these things that you ambitiously, you know, because he'd been grabbing folk instruments and acoustic instruments for the last couple of years and like working on this stuff and like trying to, you know, just like we're on tour and he's like, hey, I got this banjo. Can you get this going? Sure, cool, sweet. Got a banjo, and he's sitting there on tour, like fighting around on a banjo. Got a mandolin. Hey, can you set this up, tune this for me? Sure, got it going. And so you know, you're taking all of the things that he's done, because obviously, like, the start of 311 and the rise and everything, like that was Nick, you know, and all the rest of the guys at that point, but Nick specifically, like, that was him, and that was what was going on. And now it's like, yeah, he's dad Nick, he's matured Nick, he's, you know, he's a little bit different Nick. And so it's like some of that stuff, you know, yeah, it's still you, but there's a new part of you that maybe not is getting, and that's why Full Bloom, I think, is so different to what they have been doing, because it's right at that point where you're kind of seeing things in life a little bit differently, and you know, you're still maturing, you're still growing, even in your 50s. So getting to see that that approach and that outlet, I felt like was, you know, and not discounting all the other versions of, you know, Nick or the other guys, but I feel like where he's at now, he's super excited because he feels like, you know, he's uncovered a new part of him, or a part of him that he maybe wouldn't have found had he not attempted something so foreign and scary, you know, because, you know, I'm an introvert as much as I am being able to like be out there and talk and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like Nick is the same in a lot of ways. So it's like, it's kind of scary. Like I said, it's trying to play to 2 people is scarier than playing to 1,000 people. So if you're going out there and you're trying to, walk down the street and play and sing to strangers, it's like, that's terrifying.
Right? It is weird. It's a strange like phenomenon, but it's so true. I think what's cool
then you
too.
find that you get out of it because all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like this is better than I thought. Like, I overthought it too much.
I also think what's cool about it for him and for all the guys is when you think about everything, all the life they've lived, all the road they've traveled, all the stages they've been on, all the scenarios where shit has hit the fan and they had to like improvise and like, adjust and all that stuff. It's like you grow. And I feel like if you didn't, and if you got jaded by everything, that's like, who wants to be in that mess? Like,
but also having those outlets help you kind of I'm feeling a little bit of over here, so I'm going to do this. And that helps me like
that's like what you were talking about earlier. It's a perfect parallel with his situation is like, okay, so like maybe if you try something different right now, there's a new spark that will also feed back into 311 because now you have this whole other thing that you're like excited about and you're like, oh, now let's make the 311 cocktail even crazier.
Like SA's got Los Stellarians, so he's got his like kind of more like Ozomatli style, kind of Latin jazz and that kind of stuff, so that helps. It's like if you're not getting that out or you get a little bit, but you want a little bit more. Well, if you can't get a 311 song that's got that, you've got your different Los Stellarian stuff or like Ghost Wolf, something that's a little bit different flavor. And I just don't think there's ever a negative with having multiple musical outlets. You don't have to be,
one thing.
Yeah.
I love hearing this because it's just like, you grow up and I probably was 17 or I was probably 16 when I went to that first 311 show and we all piled into this big, like A-team looking van. And I think my buddy called it the Hoopty or something I can't remember, but we all piled in. There was probably like 8 of us in this van and just like we went to Merriweather Post Pavilion in Columbia, Maryland, and we were at this show. And I just remember being a young budding musician being like, I want to do that one day. I'm like, I know I can get on a stage like that if I just like set my mind to it kind of thing. And then I love going through life and realizing that like your heroes don't change. They still love music. They still, live, eat, breathe, sleep it. It's just a fabric. It's like who they are.
Yeah.
And not letting that decay. I love hearing when like your heroes have not let that happen. Like the Jaded didn't happen. Like they still are like open-hearted to all styles of music. Cause I know all those cats and, not only like, well, I know 311 because Justin's told me stuff about how those guys are Fish fans, but like even Incubus, like they're Fish fans and like, and there's like this cross pollination of like my world has always been the Dead and Fish and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. It's always been a cocktail of all this craziness and Foo Fighters and whatever.
Yeah.
And to like shun or to be like anti listening to one thing or the other just because you feel like you're so locked into this one thing.
Yeah.
That's what they don't do. And that's what I appreciate about them.
Yeah. And you're actually doing yourself a disservice. And if you're at that level where you're creating and there's people that are kind of consuming your music and looking to you as like a source of like their happiness and their joy in a way, like you could be the soundtrack to their life and you help them, like you're you're screwing them out of maybe the song that would save their life by not listening to this and then letting that inspire you to write a song, that you may not have written had you not heard, whatever song it is that, might be,
well, listening to the Blue album that night when I cooked dinner inspired the hell out of me in making a sweet ass pasta. So like,
I think that happens. Our studio manager over at the Hive, Tom, not me, other Tom with the grass, Tom Grasso. He's a cook, he likes to mess with cooking stuff, and I'll see him post about what dinner he made and all that. And he's also a musician and writing, and I feel like that's the kind of things that I imagine him doing when I see him post. I'm like, it's because I do the same thing, like where you're listening and it's like you use music that doesn't even have to be inspiring you to do something musical, or even like a book or a movie can inspire you to do something that has nothing to do with what that particular art form is. It's like I can use music to help me inspire like how I tell stories or how I write stuff or how I talk to people, or it's hard to put into words or explain how it works, but it's like in my brain I know how it works. It's like I'm listening, I hear this song in my head, and it's like that's what's helping me drive and do this and do that, and
Hell yeah, dude.
Listen to someone. It's like it helps me unlock that kind of like maybe that compassionary part in me, to where I can like be calm and just be a center for someone to vent to, or whatever. And it's like the music helped me do that, or this helped me do that. So it's like music doesn't have to be the inspiration for music. Music can be the inspiration for you to cook something, because you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, you're zoning out. You're focused. It helps you. For me, it's like you're calming the mind, you're quieting the mind, and it's just now you're in what you're doing.
It's one of the main things that helps me. I have ADHD, so it's one of the main things that helps me focus, on things. And it's weird because it's an auditory thing where you would think that there's like distraction going on, but it doesn't. It does the exact opposite. It totally just focuses me on everything. It's awesome, dude. Tom.
Yes.
I don't want to hold you up too. We've been doing this. I so appreciate your time, buddy.
Yeah, we can always do another one if you want.
Do a part 2, man. But let's do the lightning round get down, because I want you to get back to your day. All right. So what I do, Tom, is I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and it's a this or that situation, and you can explain your answers if you want. You don't have to. You can burn right through this and just come out the other side clean as a whistle. But I don't mind people explaining answers if you'd like to. It's up to you. The first question is always the same: Lennon or McCartney?
Harrison.
You're like the third person that's done that. I'll allow it. Taco or pizza night?
Pizza.
Since we're coming up to Halloween, Freddy Krueger or Jason?
Jason.
Milkshake or ice cream?
That's a tough one. Probably ice cream.
Okay. The fish or the dead?
Fish.
Just
because, I got into him later, and I seem to connect more. I mean, I love the Dead. I almost was wearing a Dead shirt before we did this, but Dead Fish just by that
by hair.
Yeah.
Mesa Boogie or Soldano?
Ooh, Boogie.
Okay.
Close though. Soldano's amazing. Yeah, that's another thing that's in the talk of gear.
Really?
Soldano. Yeah. So
might
be seeing some Soldano stuff with Tim.
Oh snap! Time travel or space travel?
Time.
Snowboard or sled?
Ski.
Okay. Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
Caddyshack.
Okay, here's the last one, Tom. This is sometimes the hardest, is sometimes it's the easiest. If you could take one album and erase it from your memory, just so you could go back and experience it for the first time again, what album would that be?
It would probably have to be, so not a lot of people probably know this band and album, but I mentioned them earlier. The album is called Leitmotif, and the band is Dredge.
Okay.
That is, they were on Interscope and everything. They're from my home. They're some of my best friends. But they were the band that made it out of like the San Jose, Los Gatos, South Bay area, that to all of the those that felt like they were true musicians and art guys, they were like the heroes.
Okay.
I looked up to them just as much as I looked up to Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix and all that. And when my cousin and my buddy Ben and everybody that I was really starting to oh shit, I'm going to be in a band, I'm going to play guitar with other musicians, and they played me that album, it changed my life, and it still does. And I listened to it constant, and then to be able to then get to know them. And it's the first time I met him and saw him live, I was like, oh shit, I saw my buddy Drew before I knew him, walking down the sidewalk to walk into the Catalyst in Santa Cruz, which is where the first time I saw him. And I was like, oh shit, there he goes.
That's the guy.
As a kid, I'm just and it's he's just someone from the area, but it's because they had, been touring with, all these big bands and Deftones, and they know all these guys and stuff. It was they'd made it, they were real. But that album, and each one of them is just, they're amazing creative forces like that. I feel like they're underrated, but only because everybody that was huge fans of theirs were kind of keeping them always in their back pocket. They're like, we don't want everyone to know about this band, you know,
like
and they
coveting.
Yeah, like you want to share, but you're also like, if I share it to this person, they're probably I can't keep with who they're going to show to, and those friends that they show to might not be worthy. You know, it's like
Right. The music snobbery. Meanwhile,
yeah,
the band's like, please tell everyone so we can like make some more money.
But, you know, for them, like, you know, you go back and listen to some of their lyrics and some of their later songs, is like, you know, they went independent solely because of that. You know, because of the like, we're not gonna just do what you want us to do in order to be famous. You know,
Right.
They've got some really clever lyrics that talk about that, and one of their albums, "Catch Without Arms," like, you know, I'm not gonna do what you tell me to do to make your wallet fat while mine's on a diet.
Yeah,
You know,
I get that. I totally get that. I feel like I'm just of the mindset of like, when I find something, I like spread the word, because I like.
Well, I'm like that now. You know, it's like when I was younger, though, it was like, you know, I'd show it to my friends, but it was like, you know, you better not just, you know, treat this music with respect.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and they were like, they did really well, huge and stuff, and like, you know, overseas and in Germany and stuff like that. And like, that was how I first ever heard of the Rock M Ring and Rock M Park, which was great to do last year. You know, it was so like all of these decades of like being aware of this festival just because I'd seen them do, and I'd watched I used to have to like download, you know, BitTorrent stuff and videos and, you know, stuff to see those kind of just someone's footage that they did of it. So then to be able to go and do that festival in person, even though they weren't there, it was still like, wow. And I, again, kind of weird full circle thing was, like I was saying, I toured with them and Circa Survive when they first started. And on that tour, you know, became friends with all the guys, but like, it felt like Anthony and I had like a really good kind of weird spiritual, like heart to heart connection. But it was that kind of thing. It's like the universe like smashed us together, and we had this like connection with each other. But then once that tour was over, you kind of had to hear, you know, little contacts here and there, but it was like hard to keep up because they really catapulted into a whole new level of success with Circa doing, you know, so I didn't see or talk to them for a while. And the next time they rolled through the San Francisco Bay Area, which was like years, maybe like a decade later, like, you know, went and saw him. I was like, what's that? And, you know, saw Anthony, and he was kind of like, oh shit. You know, it was like, we had that like moment of like where we like grabbed each other, and then it was like the universe ripped us apart again. I didn't see or talk to him for another, you know, maybe 10, 20 years. And I'm at the Rock, at the Nuremberg at the first festival, and he had just they were doing LS Dunes, which is him. It's like a super group. So you've got him from Circa, then you've got guys from My Chemical Romance, Trav from Coheed and Cambria, and then a couple of the guys from Thursday. So it's like all these heavy hitters of those, you know, that music genre. And so I was like trying to get all of our stuff done. Like Keanu Reeves' band is coming on right after us. So it's like I'm already kind of tripping on that because I was just standing there with them, and the lead guy in that band is from San Jose as well. And like Keanu's just kind of sitting there, like kind of like waiting, and I'm grabbing stuff and walking over, and I know, you know, he's constantly being bugged and all that kind of stuff. I can look over and just like, hey man, you know, whatever, give him a fist bump, whatever, cool. Really looking forward to seeing you guys every day for the next, you know, few festivals. And then I'm walking away, and I'm like, right now I got to get everything done. That's really cool. I just gave Keanu Reeves a fist bump. I got to put everything to go over because I really want to go catch Ellis Dunes, even if I don't get to talk to Anthony. And I look over, and between the trucks, I just see Anthony looking at me, and I'm like, I don't look like this back then. Like I didn't have all this. So I'm like, there's no way he's going to remember. Right. And he's just looking at me, and I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, he's like, fuck. And I jumped down, and it was just like, like, oh, and then like, you know, it was that kind of thing, like the universe like crashed us together again. So I got to like hang out with them and introduce Peanut, because Peanut's friends with Travis from Coheed. And then so he and I went over to watch their set, and he was just like, yeah, man, like this is fucking sick. And so then he was like, kind of, not that he was ignorant to Circa and Anthony's and, you know, music and all that stuff, but he was just like, I want to know everything that guy, like, he's like, give me your top 3. Like, if you need someone to like, be introduced to Anthony Green, he's like, give me your top 3. So I told him, like, because he was originally in Seosin. So I'm like, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this. Like, this is the stuff that I hit. Like that first Circa Survive album, again, I think would be right up there with what you're asking me about, an album that I could erase to go back and listen to it again. Because it was so like, it hit me hard in a way that was like, you feel your brain kind of changing, and like working really hard to like comprehend what it's bringing in, what it's going to do to you, and what kind of influence and impact it's going to have on you. So then after that, he was like, we're going back to see him at the next show, the next festival that we're doing. And then it was like, I got Nick and SA to come as well. And so it's me, Peanut, SA, and Nick standing there, and I'm getting to, expose them to, one, this band that I hadn't got to see live yet, but also two, this, friend of mine that I'm so honored to know and to see, and to, not hold him in my back pocket anymore and show, these guys, because he's also like, my God, fucking like 311, same kind of thing. Like you guys were such a, impactful, like empowering force, inspiration, coming up. And then like Nick's like leaning into me, and he's like, wow, like, that's really good. But also you should tell him, don't cup the mic. Like he's giving me pointers to tell him. I told Anthony at first, I'm like, hey, Nick says don't cup the mic. And he's like, oh God. Oh my God. He's like, I know. He's like so like embarrassed about shame. He's like, oh my God, I feel so bad. But then like, getting to have them all talk afterwards, like it was just nice for me to like be able to see, that connection happen. And Nick being like, he's like, we should do shows together. He's like, he looks at me, he's like, he'll make it happen. I'm like, I didn't know that was my job, but sure, I'll do whatever the fuck it takes to make sure that,
That's amazing, dude.
So it's just that kind of like, connection that you get. And it's just like something that as a teenager listening to this music, I never would have thought, as much as I wish.
There's a Nick that just dropped $5 super chat. Thanks, Nick. I don't know if that's a Nick that you're talking about, or the Nick that you've known.
No, that's a different. I think I know that Nick. Nick's a good dude. Nick's one of those guys that like I introduced him to Chad, and Chad's like, after the fact, asked me, he's like, he really wanted to make sure he remembered his name, because he's like, I really like that guy. I really like talking to that guy.
Chad is fucking beast too, man. His pocket is
which
crazy.
You saw there's a new rundown with him on his kit, because he's got a whole
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah. What's the Instagram page? It's like Another Rundown, I think is what it's called.
Oh, dude, I'll definitely check that out.
And it's Another Rundown.
Okay, I'll check that out
on Instagram and on YouTube as well. They've been posting about that. They came out. I can't remember what show it was, but they came out and did a rundown with him, getting to talk about drum corps and all that kind of stuff, and just go through his new kit, because he'd been kind of running the same kit for a while, and then he got a whole new beautiful white and gold Pearl Masters kit. Tweaked a few little things, but I would say it's probably, from what I've seen, my own side, his best kit that he's had.
His feel,
best sounding one too.
His feel and his ghost notes and his drags,
he's even not being a drummer, I love sitting and watching him, because it's you can tell when a drummer is, in my opinion, amazing, because it doesn't look like they're working that hard.
100%.
Like you watch him, and he's always just. Also, so you look at his snare, he hits in the exact same spot it's not like he's eyes closed and he's just in it. It's like a runner. Like you can kind of see their mouth is relaxed and their lips kind of bouncing. Like he'll have that, but it's like he's a frame. It's not rigid, it's not stiff. It's just perfect. And it's consistent.
Doesn't surprise me at all, dude. That's crazy. Man.
Yeah, those rim shots at 4:00. If anybody out there, whatever drummers, if you want to try to get close to the Chad sound, your snare, 4:00, rim shot, boom, bam, there.
Nice, dude. Well, man, I don't want to hold you up. I will say this on the tip of albums, like, because recently started getting into. I never really listened to Paramore. I mean, their last record. This Is Why, I dug that. That was pretty cool. That kind of got me into them. But have you heard Hayley Williams' new solo record?
Yes, and honestly, just before we started on here, I was doing a little doom scrolling on Insta, and this thing popped up, and it was an interview that she was having with someone, and they were talking about like her guitar part or whatever that she came up with a song and the guy isolated it, and I was like,
I saw that too. Yeah, dude, that record is, first of all, what is there, like 18 songs on that or 17?
yeah, it was all big.
And there are, did you see her performance on Tonight Show? Dude, right after this, go look up. So like her most recent performance on Jimmy Fallon, she played, oh my God, what's the name of that song? Hold on a second, and I'll get it in 2 seconds. But that was probably that performance. A True Believer is the song.
Okay.
That performance should win some award. Like, it was so good. And then I was like, oh crap, she has a solo record. And then that's all I've been listening to for the past like 3 weeks. So good. If anyone is a fan of Paramore, or if you're not, just go check out Hayley Williams' new record. So good.
Tying back into what I was saying about my buddies in the band Dredge, she's a fan of theirs. She, in an interview one time, I've yet to find it or see it, but we were talking about something one time, and my buddy Drew is the bass player in Dredge, and like there's a lot of the artwork for him. He brought it up. He's like, yeah, he's like, one time she was in some interview and mentioned, like, when they asked her about, influential music or something like that, and she mentioned Dredge, and either I think it was one of their songs or their albums or something, but it's just, again, one of those weird kind of coincidental, like I was talking to my sister just the other day just yesterday about like, I've been getting so many random crazy coincidences. I'm not even surprised anymore when like I'm talking to someone and they're like, oh really? Like, that's so weird. Like, I knew that, or I've been there, or I live there, or I've done that, or I was just talking about this. Or it's like that was
course
me.
You did.
Yeah. I'm like,
that's amazing. Dude, Tom, man, thank you. This is the longest podcast I've ever done. And like, I just flew by, and I feel bad because it's like your time. I don't want to take your time.
No, we're all good,
but BV, thanks for moderating the chat. If anybody
was a chat going on
there? Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, we were rolling. I was going to pop stuff up, but there was a bunch of people in here saying stuff. Obviously,
I didn't realize.
Go follow Tom on Instagram. And then 311, obviously, you can just put
311 first, and then
you'll find them. So here, I'll show you real quick. So here's a few people. Ryan. Who else is in here? Love our 311 community.
Yeah.
Stephanie, 311 fam. So you got a lot of love in here, man. There's a lot of love popping in here for you. But man, it was just fantastic to talk to you, and we might have to do a part 2 because
I'd love to. And also at that point, I will be not, away from, I won't be using borrowed gear and doing this on the fly. And
are you guys coming anywhere near Baltimore in like the winter?
No, the only thing that we have planned right now is there's one show in Miami starting in November, and then the Limp Bizkit 3 Youngblood Mexico City South America stuff, which we'll see what's up with that.
Cool.
My feeling is it's still going to go on. I don't know what I haven't. It's literally, we were in the middle of packing all the stuff for that and got the news that Sam had passed. So and it's I can't speak on it because it's far above me, but it's that's what's planned and scheduled, and until it's told or heard differently, that's what's happening. And then start of the year, I don't think there's anything really too sure other than 311 before 311 day. But the way that things always seem to go with these guys is there's always offers, and it's just what gets worked out, what gets agreed on. And again, the guys are, they got families and other things to try to consider. So it's maybe they don't want to, miss out on this or miss out on that, but whatever they say yes to, I'll be there. We'll go, we'll do it. But as of right now, the only thing I know of that's for sure is Miami, South America, 311 day. So
that's amazing. Well, I hope you guys come somewhere close to here. I'd love to come see them again in the spring or the summer.
Oh yeah,
it'd be a lot of fun, man. Well, everybody else, thank you for hanging out with us and spending some time and dropping some chats in here and saying hello. We super appreciate you. Tom, hold on 1 second. Everybody else, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. See you next time.